Okay, 1978 Ford Mustang King Cobra headers go back in. So these are the Hedman headers. I sanded them down. They were quite rusted. They'd probably been put in maybe 10 years ago. And so this is the beautiful thing about the Hedman headers. This is the long tube headers. I think this is their entry-level set. So Hedman has 2 or 3 sets for the Mustang 2, and they all disconnect the same way. They all have this. This is my pet peeve with this set of headers. This tube here to go to the #1 cylinder. So, as you can see, someone hit a speed bump. Yep, smashing the bottom of it. Luckily, there's no holes. So I went ahead and tested for that, and there's no holes made in it, no damage to the actual metal. So good thing is the Hedman headers are pretty stout steel. But the nice thing is, so this is passenger side, detaches in 3 places for easy extraction, removal, and then the driver side, which detaches in 1 place. So this long tube is removed. Yeah, it'll come out when I use 2 hands. I'm holding the camera right now. And that is my wonderful neighbor's dog. Alright, so I'm going to set this up. And we will show you how to insert these headers in this car. Hopefully I won't lose my camera. I'm using today anti-seize. Don't know if you can see that. Anti-seize. And Stage 8 locking nuts. So these locking pieces are absolutely fantastic. These keep header bolts from backing out. This is what they look like. See how they have the ring on the nut? The nice thing is too, there's 2 different ways of extraction for this. You can use an Allen wrench, or you can use a socket to remove these. So you have the Allen wrench in the center, the socket head on the top. And this company actually suggests using anti-seize when you put these in. The washer goes over, and then a locking pin goes over that once they get torqued to spec. So those are the bolts that I'm using. These are the previous bolts. I cleaned them up. There's nothing wrong with them. They're just old. They've got a lot of wear right where the header sat. So there's a lot of them. The threads are munched. And let me show you one that's really bad if I can find it. There's several of them with the threads being munched at the top. I don't know if you can see that. The threads are munched at the top. So the header rests right on those threads. And so if you needed to thread in any further than that, you're kind of screwed. And you wouldn't really want to. You'd probably over-tightening them to spec. So the heads fit in from underneath the motor. So let's do that. You want to disconnect the 2 pipes on the passenger side to get them into the motor. Alright, I don't know if you saw how easy it was to get those headers in, but the headers slid right on in, right on up. Minimal scratch. Got one little scratch there on the top, but that's okay. I'll touch that up a little bit. But now the shorty in the rear slides from the top down, and then the long extended tube for #1 cylinder slides in from the bottom up and then in to lock. So for those to go in. And actually, you can go from the top down. I don't know how successful I'm going to be doing that, but we will see. no, that's going to be a hot mess. Trying to get that down there. We're going to go in from the bottom up. But we will go from the top down on this one. Gonna get to the front of the car. A much easier view from the front end of the car. You want to lightly lock these together, so I found it easier to go in from the front of the vehicle to get number one in. I don't know if you can see that. Number one's in, back one's in. It needs to be adjusted a little bit, but going from the front for the number one seems to be an easier view. And it's like a puzzle that beautifully comes together. So Hedman did a really good job. Yeah, designing these specifically for the Mustang too. However, again, I would definitely do something about the number one cylinder pipe. I know Hooker has made some headers for these vehicles specific that kind of take care of that issue. So yeah, I don't know if you want to go with Hooker headers or Hedman. Hedman's quite a bit cheaper, and they're long tube. They fit fine. They do the same job as Hooker. They're just a bigger pain in the ass. You really have to watch yourself when you're driving. And you also have to get these things lined up pretty well when you get them seated in, because they're not going to line up right away. But time to get the gasket. I'm using cosmetic gaskets. I don't know if these things are any good. We'll find out. Cometic gaskets. These things right here. Cometic. Thickness seems to be okay. They're white. I don't know. They'll be black soon. Alright. Evenly spaced header bolts. So little trick. Put in 2 bolts. One in the front and one in the rear. And then these little hooks here. So you put your bolt here, one bolt, and then you slide the gasket in while the header is actually mounted on the motor with the 2 bolts. So you don't torque them. You just set them in. Gonna use the awesome suggested anti-seize. Lots and lots of anti-seize. That's maybe a little too much. Huh? but all the way down, all the way up. Yep, there we go. Wipe it on the pants. Oh yeah. I hate wearing gloves. I like clean hands, but I hate wearing gloves because you can't feel things with your fingers. And it puts you at a severe disadvantage when you're tightening bolts by hand or doing anything else. I just got anti-seize all over my nicely painted header. It works. Okay, that's tight but loose enough. Anti-seize on the next one. Let's not squeeze out as much. Okay, anti-seized all the way up to the top of the head. So you probably only really need to anti-seize like the lower threads because the header rests somewhere right about here. And then the gasket beyond that. So you're really only threading about that much in. But we're using enough to be safe. It doesn't really matter if it gets on the header gasket, I don't think. If you know otherwise, let me know. Left-handed. I'm not finding where this needs to go. We need a flashlight. Oh. Dropped. I may need to support this thing on the back side, because if I try to pull it up by this shorty tube on the bottom, I want to pull out